Chris, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Looks like we're starting to get some attendees coming in.
No, we just that's Cameron.
Oh, cool.
So I don't know why that is, but we'll hang tight for a little bit and let hopefully some people pour in.
Okay, so it is open then to,
It is. That's what I just tested.
got it.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you guys all so much for taking the time to join us this evening. I'm so excited to be able to go over the Nashville market with you folks, as well as share this presentation with my amazing partner, Chris Childs, who I'm going to be introducing shortly. Just before we get going here, I'd love if I can get a little bit of crowd participation. I just want to make sure that the audio is coming in loud and clear and that you can hear us okay. So for those of you that are able and in front of a PC or even be able to type in on your phone into the chat box that you can hear us, that'll just give me the go ahead that you guys can hear us and we're good to go. Awesome. I'm starting to get some replies, so I appreciate you guys participating. It's really helpful. Cool. Okay. Well, first of all, again, I wanted to thank you guys for attending the Nashville presentation. Nashville's been an amazing market for us in providing steady flow of quality tenants and a good pace of appreciation over the last few years. Chris is going to be diving into some of the basics that make Nashville a great place to invest, as well as share some of the new upcoming developments that's going to help enhance this city and make it more attractive for those of you that may be looking at an investment opportunity. I was fortunate enough to recently be in Tennessee to visiting the team out there. And I can attest to the substantial growth and new development all over Nashville and the surrounding areas. And that's, comparing to my visit a year ago. There's definitely a lot of cranes in the downtown, and things are being built, and like I said, the suburbs and all the way up to Clarksville, where we have an office, is definitely seen a ton of growth all along the way. So it's really exciting to see, and definitely seeing a lot of our investors who are existing out there, seeing a lot of satisfaction from tenants, and the appreciation that they're starting to see. So I'd like to just quickly introduce myself. So my name is Vince Tomich, and I'm an advisor here at Marshall Reddick. I work out of our Newport Beach office in California. And my primary role as an advisor is to learn as much as I can about each individual investor, and help guide you through the investment process, right? So there's many steps in essentially the home buying process, and I'm here to assist from our first call all the way till post closing. There's a number of team members that make this possible, from our agents to our lender, property management team, and I help make those connections and field any questions along the way. A little bit more about myself. I was born and raised in Southern California. I have been in the real estate industry now for over 7 years. And I'm a big fan of practicing what I preach. I'm an investment property owner myself. I own my primary. I use Marshall Reddick for property management. I'm an investor in our lending department. I use our services. I'm a client as well as an employee. So it helps when when we're having conversations about certain topics or certain parts of investing, to be able to relate to, clients from a client to client level, as opposed from just someone who's working for the company, who's just solely has no personal experience in it. So I do have that personal experience, and happy to share that with you guys, and happy to say that I've had great experiences so far, and that helps in sharing my experience with those that are new to Marshall Reddick. So speaking of, for those of you that are new to Marshall Reddick, this is always a good time for me to kind of cover who we are and what we do. I'm sure there's some of you folks that are more familiar with Marshall Reddick, but for those of you that are not, I just like to kind of quickly go over, some of our services that we provide, right? So we basically have 4 different services that we provide. So our first is real estate brokerage, second is property management, third is private lending, and fourth is our investment funds. Now, currently, the investment fund is kind of a piggyback to the private lending, but let me just break each of these down for you really quick. So for our brokerage, we help people buy and sell, right? Whether it's a primary residence or an investment property. As far as property management, so for those of you that are buying investment properties, 99% of the folks who do end up buying an investment property seek property management. We offer that service, right? And what does that service include? So, it's not limited to, but a lot of our services include marketing the property, rent collection, rent disbursement, any kind of maintenance or repair requests. We deal with, the turnover of tenants, all of the tax documents that are due at the end of the year. We would be able to issue those to you, so you can give those to your CPA, and everything in between. So that is what that's a little bit more about what property management covers. For our private money lending, that's a really interesting part of our business. So you can be a borrower or a lender, right? So our borrowers are typically folks that are doing like fix and flips on home, buying a home, rehabbing it, and then selling it or refinancing. That's a typical avenue for a borrower of ours. You also may have individuals who are self-employed, and they may have a self-directed retirement account. And when you have a self-directed retirement account, you can buy property within that entity. The only caveat is that you need a non-recourse loan. So it's a special loan. It's not like a conventional loan. And therefore, that's another avenue in which private lending becomes a factor, right? We help out those borrowers. It could be that you have more than 10 finance properties and you need private loans. There's various reasons why private lending is attractive. Even now, it's more just much less red tape. And where rates are, private lending rates are not too far of a difference. 12 to 24 months ago, when rates were a bit lower, that spread was a lot more. Now it's not so much. So sometimes people who are completely qualified or can go conventional are electing to go private just because of the more streamlined process. But that's all about the borrowers, right? On the other side of that coin, there's the lenders. So as you can see here, there's two avenues. So there's, like I said, in the private money space, there's direct lending where you can be a lender and you can lend on to one borrower. So one borrower, one lender. That is basically what we call direct lending. The other avenue, which is our fourth service here, is our investment fund. So this is a pooled group of investors, me, you, and 200 other folks that contribute to the Marshall Reddick Mortgage Fund. Now, that Marshall Reddick Mortgage Fund then loans to the various borrowers that I just described, but you're not tied to any one mortgage. You are with the mortgage fund and the overall health of the fund. So not one loan is responsible for the ups and downs of your personal investment. So it's nice. You're spreading your risk amongst various loans. You can keep the money in the fund in perpetuity. You're not subject to when that actually loan pays off. So it's a great place for consistency and a really stable return. We've been yielding just over 8% since inception, and we forecast to stay on that track moving forward, even amongst a turbulent stock market and a little bit of a turbulent interest rate market. So we've seen a lot of attraction and a lot of growth in that. And I'm happy to discuss any of these services with you folks in more detail. But for those of you that were unfamiliar, I did want to give a kind of a high level description of some of the services that we focus on. Now, the topics that we're going to be covering tonight, basically it's going to be all Nashville, right? Nashville and the surrounding areas. We're going to introduce Chris and the team, right? And let you guys know who you'd be working with. We're going to go over some property management elements, Nashville's growth, right? What's going on now, what's slated for the future. We'll talk about some employers, some just general demographics that are good to know. And then we'll also at the end, we'll cover some property examples for you to see and just see some things that are maybe active on the market or just recently sold to give you an idea of where to set expectations here. Okay. So before we turn it over to Chris, I just want to kind of give everybody a quick rundown of the markets that we do focus on. We are going to be focusing on Nashville, Tennessee for this presentation, but we are, our services do span across 5 states across the country. And if any of these particular markets are of interest, that's something that I can help with and navigate that with you guys on a one-on-one. And I will be doing some follow-up calls after if there's any of these other markets that you'd like to discuss. Now, how did we choose those markets, right? There's various markets that you just saw, and I think we can all agree that not every single market across the country is a good market to invest in. And we've taken the time to vet out specific markets that we do want to focus on, and I think we've put together some key criteria here that we feel support a strong investment market. That includes we want a strong job market, low vacancy rates, economic diversity, right? We don't want to depend on one employer or one industry to support the tenants in the community. Landlord friendly, right? So for those of you that are here with me in Southern California, it tends to be a more tenant friendly environment, whereas Tennessee is much more landlord friendly, and that's advantageous to you as an investor, right? Strong education, having good schools is important. And then last but definitely not least, reliable property management is also critical. You want to make sure you're in an area where there's not just one show in town and you're forced to work with, just one entity, right? Nashville, Clarksville, the surrounding areas of the metros of Tennessee that we focus on do have that strong element of reliable property management. And we, of course, are one of those one of those folks, and we definitely feel like it is a critical piece to the puzzle. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Chris Childs. He's one of our top agents in Tennessee. I'll let him do a bit more explanation on himself, but has been an incredible resource for myself here in Southern California and supporting all of the clients that we send his way. So really thankful to have him on the call, and look forward to what Chris has to say. So go ahead, Chris, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Vince. Yeah, as Vince said, I am fortunate to be able to work with many clients together with Vince and some of the other advisors and some of our other offices to help support our market out here in Tennessee. And as he mentioned as well, the growth has just been pretty steady, pretty continuous ever since I got my license, actually going on about 8 years ago. And there's a bit of a slowdown just naturally with the interest rates and such, but we're still pushing forward, and we still got cranes in the sky, still got a lot of new businesses in the works. So I'm really excited to talk with everybody tonight about our town. But I have been a realtor all over the area, like I said, for about 8 years. I over 200 homes now. I don't know the exact number, but I'm very familiar with the neighborhoods, the markets, the areas. So, I help to tailor fit exactly what someone's looking for to, the appropriate neighborhoods and areas that fit their investment goals. I also do whatever it takes. A lot of our properties are sourced from the MLS just because of the standards that we have. We really want to see people getting into homes in neighborhoods and areas that are most likely to appreciate. But other investors, they might want to do more of renovations or put some value add into properties. So I can help source some off-market deals, whether it be through wholesalers, for sale by owner properties. So doing whatever it takes for my clients is definitely what my motto is. And to add to all of that, I am also an investment property owner myself. My wife and I are actually looking for our next investment property right now. So while a lot of people are on pause, we still believe in our area enough to be actively searching as well. So I think that, it's always a great time to buy where the numbers make sense and where you believe in the area. So that's a little bit about myself. And this is our local office. So this is not everybody that's there. We've actually hired quite a few people since this photo was taken, but our office is growing very rapidly as well, to the point where when the team came in from our California office a month or so ago, we're already discussing needing a new space in the near future for the amount of growth that we're seeing. But right here in-house, we have the brokerage side, the sales division. That's where I'm at. And then we also work right side by side with our property management division. So that way it allows us to really work hand in hand to help make it a very seamless process for our clients. So as soon as a home is closed, I don't go away. I help transition that into our property management. I help with the leasing of that property and make sure that it's well taken care of along the whole way there. But as Vince also mentioned, we do private lending. So that's something else that if you're interested, you could discuss with him at a later time. But as our motto is, we are a one-stop shop for our investors. We want to make it where you never have to come, you never have to even touch the property if you don't want to. In fact, many of my clients I've never actually met in person. We do a lot of virtual meetings, virtual showings, and just because of how well our system works, they get to kind of just take this hands-off approach, let us manage their property, do any kind of maintenance that needs to be done for them, and you never have to worry about any of those things. This slide maybe should have been before the last one, but that's a picture of my family there. We added a new addition. I got 3 boys now. Our youngest is actually going to be 2 this year, so I need to update that picture. But You can see this is where our rental property is on the map to the right of this slide. We have a rental property in Pleasant View, which is located in between Clarksville and Nashville. We actually bought our next home, as you can see, just south of Clarksville in the Sango area, which is a fantastic neighborhood as well. If you're looking for properties that are outside of the Nashville metro area, but still in a great location. So we can talk more about that. To give you just a high level overview, if you're not familiar with Middle Tennessee, you can see the Nashville circled there in the center. It's the capital. It's the hub of Tennessee. It's where the most growth is happening. And then just about 45 minutes to the northwest is Clarksville. And that is where our main office right now currently is located. But it's only, like I say, about 45 minutes away. So we're in and out of Nashville weekly, almost daily sometimes, just depending on the clients that we're working with. So we're definitely growing that way and hope to open an office directly in Nashville also in the near future with the amount of growth that we're seeing. This is the most recent market stats about the Nashville area. And a lot of people, they might think that our market is declining, that it's not doing very well, just because sales are down year over year. Actually, they're down about 20% at the moment. And total inventory is down, somewhere around 6%. Closings are down around 15%. But the interesting thing to note is that the average price is up 7%. So even with a decline in some of those numbers, we're still seeing that appreciation. We're still seeing homes going up in value. We're still seeing demand for our market. But there's a lot of factors, but you just have to concentrate on the fact that probably around 80% of homeowners, they have mortgage rates that are under 5%. So there's a lot of people that are they're not selling. They're not going to put their home on the market, and that's going to keep inventory levels low. And one exciting factor that I hear, I've heard from some experts, a lot smarter than myself in the real estate industry, is that when we see rates begin to come down, there's going to be a massive surge of buyers jumping back in the market. And so, nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows for sure what's going to happen, but there are some experts that believe we may be close to the bottom of what the current dip is. So that'll depend on a lot of factors. But again, I think it's always a great time to buy when the numbers make sense, when the investment strategy matches what you're looking for. And when you're buying in a city like Nashville and Tennessee, the long-term outlook is super bright. And if you look at any historical real estate trends, prices always go up. It's always a short period of time where they come back down. So before they reach new all-time highs. So definitely seeing the growth continuing here in our area. This little heat map, just I wanted to point out where some of the pricing is, just depending on the areas around Nashville. If you look north of town, and also east and south of Nashville, you can find homes that are still reasonably priced in the 400 range. The closer you get to downtown, it's definitely more desirable. So you start getting over that 600K price point. And then further south of Nashville, you are in the very high luxury market. It's where a lot of the musicians and actors and stars in the area live, and affluent people. So that area is generally not where most people choose to make an investment. But I'm going to point out some of these other great neighborhoods where you can find some good deals actually right now. Some stats just to familiarize you more with the Nashville area. Population in the greater Nashville area is over 2 million now. We do have a younger median age demographic, which keeps the job market going, keeps the vibrance of the city going, and definitely a lot of forward thinking happening here. The median income also allows for most people to be able to afford properties to rent or purchase, although we are seeing more people entering the rental market right now just because it is not as affordable as it has been when interest rates were lower. So that's been great for a lot of our property owners and rental property because there has been an influx of rentals. But the home ownership does remain high. It's at around 66% of owner occupied homes. So we are not super saturated with rental properties. There's a good balance there. The median home price, as you saw before on the chart, is around 560,000. So anything under that is going to be a great entry level price to get into our market and see some good appreciation over time. And we do have a ton of jobs all over the area, so the unemployment rate has remained low as well. Some key facts about Nashville. Property values have just steadily increased year over year. It was only around 7%, but this if you look at the bigger picture, maybe looking back over the past 4 to 5 years, we have been seeing sometimes continuously 20% plus appreciation, just depending on the neighborhood. But it was very rapidly growing. We saw that come down a little bit, but it's leveled out and actually started to tick back up. Rents, though, also have continued to increase by about 25% over the past 3 years. We're usually seeing somewhere around like 10% or so, but that's a very big growth overall for the area. And again, there's a good balance between owner-occupied and renter-occupied homes. Nashville continues, if you haven't seen it in the news recently, but it does continue to hit on a lot of top rankings around the country for #1 metro, hot job markets, fastest selling homes, stable. So those are all great factors that investors are looking for, and that what continue to make it such a desirable city and place for people to live. Again, with all of those factors in consideration, the job opportunities continue to expand. We've been known as Music City for a long time, but that is quickly expanding into different industries. Healthcare is obviously a really big one here as well. We're seeing a lot of technology companies moving into the area. Names like Oracle and Google and Amazon are all building hubs here in the Nashville area. We do have still a low cost of living compared to many other states and cities around the country. One great thing that people do enjoy about moving to Tennessee from some other states is that we don't have a state income tax. So that is sometimes an immediate savings for people who have been paying income tax to other states. And the per capita income, though, for Nashville is about 20% higher than the US average. So it's still great wages for the low cost of living that you get in our area. We've got just about every major league sport now. We've got, of course, the Tennessee Titans. We've got the NHL Predators. We've got the MLS soccer team, the Nashville SC. If you watch soccer at all, you might have seen Messi, a pretty well-known name in the soccer industry, playing here just a few weeks ago. That was a huge event. And then the Nashville Sounds, which is a minor league baseball team. If you're into MLB like myself, there is talk in the industry of Nashville getting an MLB team in the near future. So hopefully that comes to fruition. I would love that. But that would give us every major league sport right here in town. The Titans have announced, and this is actually a fully approved project now, a brand new stadium that's going to be built, just a massive growth for our city, and pouring in, about $2.1 billion into this project. But it'll be a multi-use area for various events and other, project or other events and things like that. So as a big talk of the town right now. And then here's some other major employers just around the area. We've got the auto industry, places like Nissan and Bridgestone. Dollar General has its hub here. Probably familiar with the Vanderbilt name, but Vanderbilt College or University and Medical Center is located right in near downtown Nashville. We've got a lot of other big names like HCA in the healthcare industry. I mentioned Oracle Technology. They're moving their headquarters right outside of downtown Nashville. So some big names are moving in, and there's others that are in the works. So they just continue to see the possibilities and continue moving to our area. Also, in very close proximity to Nashville, we have some top-ranked national universities, including Vanderbilt, Belmont, Lipscomb, but all of these that you see here are located within about 30 minutes or less of Nashville. So that is also bringing a lot of younger minds into the area, and so when they graduate, they're coming in, moving into the job market, and so it's a good hub to continue bringing in, that younger demographic that's going to just keep things moving forward in our city. There are a lot of projects in the works. Some of these are still in the planning stage. Some of these are in just various phases of getting started, but all around downtown Nashville, especially looking to the north of downtown, there is a vision to create basically a second downtown, a sister downtown area. None of that has really been started just yet, but there is a lot of large investment companies that are buying up property and holding that for the vision that is to come. You can see on the map to the left-hand side to the north, right off of the Interstate 24, that is where the Oracle campus is going to be built, their headquarters. That's fully approved. They are moving forward with that project. Just south of that space and that project is where the new Titan Stadium is going to be. So the current downtown is to the west of the Cumberland River that you see in the map there. And then that push to the east side of that river is where things are headed. And then also to the north side of downtown, as I mentioned before. This map is a great graphic that shows the various projects that are in the works for downtown. More high-rises are in the works. Many are under construction, and then others are in various phases of planning. But the downtown landscape continues to change and grow, and it just continues to bring more people here, more construction in the residential market as well, and it's just a great sight to see. So if you haven't visited, you should definitely come and see what we're all about. So now let's get into where are we going to find these great investment properties. We've heard about what is happening. We've seen the growth that's coming to the Nashville market, but where can we find the opportunities for investment properties? So one of those is just to the west of downtown, probably about 15, 20 minutes outside. This location, it's a neighborhood or an area called Hermitage. It's top-ranked schools. It's a more family-friendly neighborhood. It's not the very busy environment that you find around the downtown, but you find more family neighborhood settings. It's located close to two very popular lakes, a lot of different parks in the area, and the home prices there also more affordable compared to what you find in that 500 plus range as you're closer to downtown Nashville. Then south of downtown, we've got also a lot of new projects coming in. We've got a massive a mixed use community called Century Farms that's coming in. Tanger Outlets, if you're familiar with those, they're bringing in a massive retail and restaurant space into South Nashville. And then there's a lot of different new construction communities that are being built up there. Also, you can find home prices in that mid 400 range, which is a lot more affordable for a lot of people. So that is where we see that push going as well. This is a few graphics just to kind of show you where that is and what that's looking like in some of those projects. But where this Tanger Outlets property is going to be, it's actually very close to the new MLS soccer stadium that they've built. So a lot of money and time and planning is going into building up the South Nashville area. And then to the north of downtown, we have a neighborhood area called Madison. Again, this is only around 15 minutes outside of downtown, also still very close proximity to the airport. But Madison also has a lot of parks. It's also another family-friendly area where we're seeing a lot of growth and more affordable homes as well. Vince, you want to pick up on this slide for just a moment, talk a little more about this?
Absolutely, yeah. So these are our data packets. So you're going to find data packets on any market that we have a presence in. So we have we update these annually. It's usually towards the end of the year that we get the last year's data. So this is something that's really good for those of you that are more analytical, that want to dive into some of the numbers that uh, Chris kind of went over today. But this is a really good in paper form way to review the market, and you can find that for free on our website, www.marshallreddick.com /Nashville. So that will give you the data packets there. And Chris, I was just monitoring some of the questions, and normally we'll kind of hold off questions till the end, but there are a few that have been coming in, and figured maybe we can answer a couple along the way if you don't mind.
Yeah.
One of them really quick was just what are the natural disasters that are common in Nashville that an investor should expect? So whether it's Nashville or Clarksville, what are the things that we need to keep an eye out for?
That is a great question. I should have touched on that. Pretty much the only natural disasters that we have here come in the form of storms. We generally have an uptick of those in the early spring and then into the fall season as we are right now. And through those storms, it is a rare occurrence, but we do get a lot of wind that comes through our area. So most damages that occur to properties occur on a very limited scale. This is not something that happens all the time. It's not very widespread, but there are, occasionally shingles might get blown off in a storm. Some tree limbs may come down in some of those storms. And then very rarely we do get tornadoes in our area. Unlike hurricanes, they don't affect massive areas. They're very sporadic. So I can't say like there is this one particular area that gets them more than others. We've seen them hit pretty much every direction, northeast, southwest of Nashville. But again, they're very limited in their destruction when they do happen. So it is not something that causes so much distress for property owners that they need to use extra insurance. Our standard insurance policies in Tennessee cover tornado damage. So it's not like an above and beyond coverage that you need to have on a property. It's pretty standard coverage for homeowners insurance here in town. The other thing to be on the lookout for, and this is something that I look at with every property that I ever recommend to an investor, but there are certain homes that were built years ago that are now located in floodplains. So we have seen more with the development and with the growth, that's come to the areas. A lot of these smaller little streams and tributaries that homes were built around, they're getting a lot more water during these big storms, and so some properties that used to not be considered in a flood zone are now in a flood zone. But that is all FEMA data that we can easily access and that I check for every property that we look at. So that would be the only other thing to look into. And if you did purchase a home that was in a flood zone, you would have to obtain an extra policy for flood insurance. But again, I don't recommend ever really buying those types of properties, so that wouldn't be something that we would need to consider.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Absolutely. Was there any other questions at the moment that I can answer?
There are a couple more. I was thinking maybe we'll let you get a little further in the presentation, and then we'll try to get to the rest of them. And guys, just so you know, the folks that are listening, if we don't get to your question, do not worry. We will be doing follow-up calls. We will be able to answer your questions. And if we want to set up a call, myself and Chris, we're happy to do one-on-one. So don't worry if we don't get to them, but we will try to work through them as we go.
Perfect. So we kind of already have covered the data that we're looking at in this chart, but just from a historical standpoint, if you look at the table on the right side of this slide, you can see the massive appreciation that we saw just between 2018 to 2019, 2020, and then a huge uptick in 2021. We're going to accumulate new data and update this to show you, but if you were to look at 21 to 22 and 22 to 23, you would see continuous growth in some areas, even close to 20%, as I mentioned earlier. But going back, I always like to point this out because a lot of cities experienced a massive decline in the 2007, 2008, 2009 market crash. If you look at Nashville, prices only went down around 8, maybe close to 9% during that time, and so it was a more sheltered area. And I would say now we're even more sheltered with the amount of businesses and the diversity of industries that we have here, and then the lower cost of living. I mean, I just think that in any type of a downturn, it's only going to cause more people to look at and move to states like Tennessee. One other thing I want to point out before I go to the next slide is our rating scale. So we also offer on our website an ebook that I highly recommend that you check out. It's called the Reddick Rating ebook. And we basically explain how you can almost take all the guesswork out of buying an investment property. And so every city, every market that we work in, we go off of the MSA and we put that up against this rating scale. And so the properties that we recommend are going to fall somewhere at least in a B class, but all the way up to A class, sometimes up into the luxury market, just depending on particular investors' goals. And that the reason for that is those types of properties are going to get the best quality tenants. They're going to have lower maintenance, and they're going to be in these areas that we're talking about, neighborhoods that are going to see this appreciation. I know one of the biggest fears that I hear from newer investors in the single family world is they worry about the maintenance, they worry about the damages. And so we can really help to manage that by making sure that we're buying in these neighborhoods that are going to get you the tenants that are going to take care of the properties, pay their rent on time, and give you a great experience in buying investment properties. All right, so now we'll move into looking at some actual examples. These are hand-picked properties that I just looked at this afternoon and added to the presentation. So you can see these are real-life examples of properties that are available, at least as of today, in our market, what they'll rent for, and some of the high-level stats about those properties. So this property located at 2309 Eden Crest Drive is this is actually a neighborhood in the south part of Nashville that I mentioned. That's where the Tanger Outlets is going. That's where it's close to the Nashville soccer stadium that was just built last year. But this is an A-class property. It's a 3-bed, 2.5 bathroom home, 2,600 square feet. And as of today, it's listed for 475. Now, one thing I want to mention to everyone on the presentation and everyone that listens after is we are seeing one of the best opportunities that I've seen in many, many years for buyers, where buyers in a lot of cases have the upper hand. So while interest rates are really high and it is keeping a lot of people out of the market, as an investor, I have been able to negotiate some of the very best deals that I have actually negotiated in my entire career, simply because sellers, people that need to sell their property, they don't want to sit on the market for 30 days or 45 days. You know, they start getting antsy, they want to get their property sold, and a lot of these people have a lot of equity, so they have wiggle room when it comes to the list price, when it comes to offering seller concessions. And so one of the ways that we've been able to use those seller concessions is to help buy down the interest rates. And so the numbers that we're looking at here, they are taking into consideration an interest rate of 6.25. Now that may seem realistic if you've been looking and shopping interest rates lately, but that is a realistic number with our local lender, or with our preferred lender, Reed Hazard, who I'd love to get you connected with to just have a conversation and see what he might be able to do for you. But that is obtainable in this market with rate buy down. So that's where these numbers are coming from if you do look at that and seem a little bit surprised. So again, let's go back to this example property. The list price is 475. We might be able to negotiate that down further, but for the sake of this exercise, we'll just take it for what it is. So at 475, we do recommend putting down at least 30% in this market. That will help you to also reduce costs, get better interest rates, and that sort of thing. So putting 30% down. We always factor in some amount for initial repairs. Most homes are going to need at least things like touching up some paint, doing some deferred home maintenance. So I always like to buffer in some initial repair cost for existing properties. And then of course you've got closing costs. So all in, to purchase a home like this, you would need around 157,000. Rental comps in this neighborhood were trending around $2,700 a month for a property like this. And then taking all of your fixed expenses into account, this home would still positively cash flow. Now, it's not a lot, but again, you're buying into an area and a neighborhood where appreciation is going to be very good, and where there's a lot of growth occurring. So that is why, you know, you don't see as high of cash flow here as you may have hoped to. Some things that will help improve that cash flow, though, are going to be putting down more money. If you have the ability to do that, that will help increase your cash flow. And then one other thing to take into consideration is this is only the rent as of today. Next year, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're going to see continuous rent increases. And so this number is going to continue to improve over time.
And Chris, great property to point out. One thing I just wanted to add to that is for the individuals that are looking at this 30% down and thinking that that might be high for them, that, you know, that could be the case. And this, like Chris said, this is kind of the recommended route to get the numbers to work. Although for those of you those of you that are willing to take, more of a negative in the cash flow and kind of spread your money to potentially get a little bit more, get your foot in the door, the required minimum down is 20% for a single family. For multifamily 2 and plus, it's 25%. Typically, that 25% for a single family is what you're going to see on all of our calculators, or now you're not, it's starting to get to that 30%. And same with multifamily, it's bumped up. You're usually going to see at least 30 for that minimum down. So just know that in the back of your head that number is slightly adjustable if you can get your foot in the door with that kind of a down payment. One question, Chris, that I've gotten a couple times, which is always nice to talk about for Tennessee as opposed to, Texas, is the property taxes, right? So the property taxes are very favorable here in terms of the rate. Do you have a range of a rate in which the property taxes are? Because like when I'm doing the math on this property, it's sub 1%. So I'm wondering if you have like a kind of an average rate, or it's, something that you can kind of give us as a range.
Yeah, and so one thing to keep in mind is, unlike some states, properties that sell in Tennessee, they do not get reassessed at the sales price at the time of sale. So older homes of the same square footage are going to have a lower tax basis than newer homes, given all other criteria the same, in the same area and location, size, all of that. They're going to have a higher tax, higher property tax the newer the home is, and that's because they are assessed at that newer rate. So the range that I tell people is, and it just varies again with the age of the property, but this is a little bit of an older home built in 1997. And so for something built, let's say before maybe 2010, it's going to be closer to like 0.7, 0.8%. And then the closer you get to brand new, it will trend closer to 1% of the sales price.
Which is, music to a lot of our ears, because of those of us in California or that are looking like in a Texas, for example, or even, at Florida, which are other markets that we're in, it's definitely higher. And would you say that assessments are done every couple years? Do you have a kind of a rough estimate on that too?
I know Nashville did one probably about 3 years ago, and I
Okay.
don't know if there's another one on the books lately, but it's usually, I would say, from what I've seen, about every 2 to possibly even up to 5 years, just depending on the city. So like each city is going to do, like Nashville proper is going to do its own assessment, but some of these outlying suburbs and other places may not do one at the same time. So it does fluctuate, but it's not a specific math formula. I know that's hard for some people, but it just varies. So if we're looking at a certain property, we can do some due diligence into that. But
No,
I don't
awesome.
have one
That's
coming.
that's super helpful. Super helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so the next property is actually one that's located in Madison. That was one of the other top neighborhoods that I mentioned a few minutes ago. And this is a newer home. So you can see, even though it's almost brand new, not brand, 2016, I'm sorry. So it's got a little bit of years on it, but not too much. And the property taxes are not much different than the 1997 home that we just looked at. So this is, again, built in 2016. It's a 3-bed, 2.5 bath, 2,100 square feet. It is currently listed for 500,000. I did put just a little bit less of a repair cost, just again, because I want people to understand, like, most likely we're going to need to touch up some paint. We're going to need to probably make, a few minor repairs here and there. So just always be prepared that with any existing home, there's going to be a little bit of maintenance that we need to do to get the home rent ready, but that's only to protect you as the owner and make sure that you don't have any bigger expenses because of things that were left undone. So again, I did calculate this one at 30%, but as Vince mentioned, you can come at this deal with as little as 20%. But those are all numbers that I'd love for you guys to get together, talk with Reed about, and see what we might be able to do. The rent, though, on this home is significantly higher, even though the sales price is also higher. And so you can see after your fixed expenses here, you'd be getting a monthly check for around $424. So that looks a little bit better for most people, of course, in terms of cash flow. Moving on, this home is actually located a little bit closer to downtown. So that's why it does still have sort of what you might consider a higher sales price for a smaller home, but the location and proximity to downtown is very desirable, and I believe would see great appreciation over time. So this home was built in 2000. It's a 3-bed, 2.5 bath, 1,700 square feet, listed at $454. Again, accounting for a few repairs and some seller rate buy down. The rents for this area neighborhood and this size home were around 2,700. So this home still comes out in positive cash flow with 30% down and a little bit of rate buy down factored in there as well.
And one thing I want to point out there too, Chris, is I've gotten a couple questions just about cash flow, and that there's a negative number down below there, right? So what you'll see is there's also a negative 346. So that's going to include your maintenance, vacancy, and leasing fee. Those are variable expenses, right? So there's no way to completely forecast what that's going to be, right? So, we do have, based on our property classes, this is kind of what we've estimated as an A-class property. But what we're trying to get folks to realize, though, is that at the end of the day, right now, given the rates, getting anything to break even just at fixed expenses is quite challenging. So when those individuals that are trying to seek out high cash flow, and after including variable expenses, which again are something that could happen, they couldn't happen in that year, they eventually will happen. So it's always something good to budget for. But nonetheless, to try to achieve a high cash flow in this market with lower down payments is just not going to be achievable. You're going to have to put significantly more down if you're trying to cash flow. And then the thing that you have to be worried about that is if you do find properties that are cash flowing significantly, oftentimes, there's a sliding scale from appreciation to cash flow. As you're starting to get into higher cash flow properties, those tend to be in a little bit tougher areas, tougher condition, tougher kind of tenants that you might have to deal with. So just because it cash flows on your Excel or on paper does not necessarily mean at the end of the day it's going to work out that way, because when you move into those higher cash flow markets or properties that are in rougher shape, that property class oftentimes shifts, right? And then you're going to forfeit a little bit of appreciation growth, and then you're also going to need to make a little bit of adjustments on the maintenance and vacancy. So when it all comes down to at the end of the day, that's really not always the best way to go either. So just something to point out, and I know that we're happy to go into more detail and kind of go over how we're getting to these returns, right? Because I also saw a question about the return. It's a little bit of a longer answer, but that's assuming a 15-year hold. All of our calculators are assuming a 15-year hold. And in that calculation includes cash flow, which in this case is going to be a significant negative, right? Appreciation is going to be a huge factor towards that growth, principal pay down, and then backing out your selling expenses. That's going to give you the profit over the investment capital, and that's how we arrive at these return on investment figures of 16%. Right now, that's assuming you hold for 15 years. As you taper that number down, that return will go down. But in all of our online calculators, you'll see a function symbol and the ability to review these formulas and these calculations. So I encourage you guys to pop on our website, explore that a little bit, but happy to go over any more questions and details about that as well.
Really glad you hit on that, Vince, because yeah, that's a common question. All of this is best guess, right? But one thing we do know, and one thing that this calculation doesn't take into account, is that again, rents tend to, and they, as I've always seen, they go up over time. So these numbers will also improve more so than what we're looking at here as well. All right, guys, I got one last property for you. I'll buzz through it and then Vince can pop back in real quick and we'll wrap this thing up. This property is in West Nashville. It had a high cash flow, so I really wanted to touch on it. I didn't mention West Nashville as much tonight, but West Nashville is more of a family-friendly area, just like I mentioned about Hermitage and Madison. Um, there's not as much growth happening there because it's already been pretty well developed. But some of the top ranked schools are also located out in the West Nashville area. But this home also listed somewhere in the 469 range. Needed maybe a little bit of repair cost just to get it rent ready. But after all the fixed expenses, looking at the rents and all, we were looking at a monthly cash flow somewhere around $478. So pretty notable there. Be happy to talk with anybody about some of these areas in more detail and help you get more familiar with our market. All right, Vince.
Awesome, Chris. Thanks so much for going over those properties. Okay, guys, and as we're heading to that 6 o'clock mark, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Basically, want to cover property management. The long and the short of it is, why property management? It's not just a matter of dealing with maintenance and vacancy and having eyes on the property. There's a huge element to that is just keeping up with local laws and keeping the landlord out of trouble, right? Trying to protect them from any kind of litigation or any kind of basically issues that could arise from the property, and having a good management company is critical in that. Again, this isn't a huge profit center for us. We want to keep the existing relationship with our buyers and want to encourage them to buy more property, and we want to ensure they have a good experience. And the way we can do that is by stepping in and taking on that role of property management. I wanted to highlight really quick some of the fees. So from a single family home, it's 8% of the gross monthly rent, and that tapers off as you get into larger multifamily. There's really just 3 fees here. So we're going to have our basically our monthly management fee, our leasing fee, right? So whenever the property is vacant, we collect 50% of the first month's lease, and then any at lease renewals, we charge 15% of that new rate. So that's essentially the fees that are associated with the ongoing relationship of property management. Happy to send this or go over more details about this for any of you that have questions. But as far as, I am gonna be doing follow-up calls tomorrow or beginning of next week if I can't get a hold of anybody. But basically just want to figure out the who, what, when, where, and why, right? I want to talk a little bit about why you may be looking to buy, how, what options, right? Cash, conventional, private, when, what kind of property? Is it single family? Is it a multifamily? Is it new? Is it old? Where, right? So is it in Nashville? Is it in Clarksville? And make sure you know all the key players along the way, right? So from Chris to myself to our preferred lender, our insurance folks, there's a lot of people along the way that make this happen. So, but Chris, one of the questions, I guess, before we log off here that I thought was really important, and guys, for those of you that would like my contact information to get any more questions or get on a call with myself or Chris, here it is here. So I'll leave this on the screen while we maybe try to get through 1 or 2 more questions. But Chris, one of the questions that I saw that was a good one maybe to cover is, what is the competitive or comparative advantage between Nashville over Clarksville? I know we've talked a little bit about Clarksville because we have a physical presence there, and we've seen that a lot of investors kind of make the investment work a little bit better because of the price point. But I wanted, maybe in your own words, if you wanted to cover a little just high level advantages of Nashville over Clarksville or vice versa.
Absolutely. I mean, they are really 2 different markets. The vibe in Nashville is definitely going to be one that's a faster pace. It definitely caters to a younger demographic in many ways, and then the price points are also, as we saw today, much higher. So for the average home in Nashville, we're looking at somewhere, or the median rather, we're looking at somewhere in the mid 500 range. In Clarksville, that same type of home is going to be somewhere in maybe the high 200s to possibly low 300,000 range. So it's just a more affordable market for a lot of people. But what we're seeing in Nashville is a lot of the buyers and renters are people that are not from our area. So they're coming from higher income states where they're used to paying more, and so they just want to be more in that vibrant city life. And so Clarksville, uh, it just caters overall more to a working class, to a people that are ready to establish families and kind of settle down more. Not like I said that you couldn't find that in the suburbs immediately around Nashville, but it's just that the price points for some people are going to be more affordable in Clarksville. Now, the investor play for Nashville is going to be higher appreciation, most likely, whereas the play in Clarksville is going to be most likely higher cash flow. However, we've seen massive appreciation in Clarksville as well. But I do believe that long term, we're going to see more appreciation in properties that are in close proximity to Nashville than in Clarksville. But again, the cash flow on those properties in Clarksville tend to be a little bit higher, and the entry level pricing is also lower.
Awesome, Chris. That was a great explanation. And guys, for those of you that we didn't get to your question, like I said, I will be doing follow-up calls and we can get to those and make sure we cover them all. So I do want to thank everybody for your time this evening. It's always a pleasure to connect with you, Chris, and to go over the market. We're really excited to be working with you, and we look forward to connecting soon and hopefully getting some of the folks that were on tonight's call on another conversation and exploring Nashville a little bit more.
Absolutely. I'd love to talk and get connected, answer any questions you might have, but I appreciate everybody who joined us tonight and who watches this after we post it on our website.
Thanks, Chris. Have a good night, everybody.
See you guys.